8th Conference of Parties to be held in Dubai from the 24th to 29th of November. Several heads of state, negotiators and civil society groups will be heading there to present and demand that action be taken towards lowering emissions, protecting ecosystems, and demand that the loss and damages be paid. But even as days approach, just what is the African position on climate change? Dennis Aseto with more.
Convened in Nairobi for the Africa Climate Summit earlier this year. The meeting saw several heads of state and different stakeholders engage in what would culminate to be the Nairobi Declaration, a document that holds Africa's position on climate change.
Africa Climate Summit is both a demonstration of the unwavering collective commitment of the people of Africa to their vision to make humanity's first home here in Africa a land of abundant potential.
The document saw African leaders call for urgent action by developed countries to reduce carbon emissions, propose a new financing mechanism to restructure Africa's crippling debt, and unlock climate funding.
The Nairobi Declaration was adopted to be the basis for Africa's common position.
Emissions remain the most important and sensitive issue when talking about climate change, and as such, the world must find a way to address this. Carbon credit continues to be one of the ways to address the emissions issue.
Carbon credits is a mechanism, a market mechanism, to be able to control the amount of emissions in the global space. The thinking around it is if you can create a cap and trade mechanism, meaning that those people who are emitting can be disincentivized by having a cap, and they'll have to purchase or make payments, then it creates an incentive for people to be able to control how much they emit. It's a concept that has been there since the Kyoto summit, and it has gained traction. And I think African countries who are the least contributors are looking at it as an opportunity for them to be able to also generate a much needed revenue.
Aside from negotiating for better terms and carbon credits, Africa must push for climate financing, an area that has seen promises made but little to no action done.
You know, when you talk about climate finance, there are two perspectives on how you can think about it. Number one, it's, as you've said, Africa getting what it's due to it, almost like reparations in a way. That's one angle. But there's also another angle of Africa coming up with technologies that use clean energy, that are very efficient, and that can attract investors and capital. The first one, I think it's still a long process, because there are many parts about it around how do you attribute this to that. But the second part of how do we attract investments into businesses that are already producing clean, efficient, I think that's an easier sell, and I think that one will possibly run ahead in terms of attracting funding.
So I think we need to be realistic and tell those countries which are producing the largest percentages of the climate change. We need to tell them they need to own up, and they need to have a kind of a compensation. They need to maybe finance projects in the continent, or in African continent, or in the developing world, because these are things which we never committed. That's the reality, and I think as a continent, we need to be bold enough and tell the developed world that they are the greatest contributors of climate change.
The road to COP28 is one that demands that African leaders come together with one voice